Alright guys, now that tomato season is pretty much over and we're pretty much kicking into full gear into fall mode, there's a lot of stuff that has to be done as far as the tomatoes that were in the ground, and one of those things is pulling out the plastic, so I figured I'd show you guys exactly how it's done here on the farm. This is actually a biodegradable plastic, but it's made from corn, and because it's not a certified organic variety, we can't let it sit in the ground and let it decompose. Otherwise, you know, if we weren't growing organically, something like this would basically just decompose into the soil, but we can't have that because it's not an organic variety. So this is going to be pulled up first things first. What I'm going to do is actually cut the string that I had used to hold up the structures of the tomatoes to keep them from falling over. Now there are attachments that you could put on the back of the tractor that will dig into the soil and pull up the plastic while you're going down the row. But that's not an option here because we just don't have one. Got the string off, and that was part one. Part two is go ahead and start pulling these tomatoes out of the ground, and I'll be doing the same thing with the weeds if they're in their way. So nothing fancy. Let me just show you exactly how it's done. All I do is I try to grab it from the base, and you see these weeds that comes out too. This is the base right here. Now most of the time that will come up with the root intact, but interesting enough, now that I'm doing a video, it doesn't want to cooperate. So I pull the root out, and then if there's any weeds that are like crossing over that's gonna be an obstruction, then I'll pull those out too. These look pretty okay, not that big a deal. And let me get these. See, that one came up sort of okay. And you see you got some weeds over here. I'm going to pull these out because they're laying over the plastic, and I don't want anything laying over the plastic because that's going to get in my way as I start pulling the plastic up. Now, all I'm doing with these dead tomato plants is I'm piling them up into a compost bin so they can decompose. Alright, so now that we got the string off, we pulled the tomatoes out of the ground, we pulled some of the weeds back a little bit. The next part is actually removing these stakes. The best time to really pull these out is on a wet day when it's nice and, you know, after a good downpour. We got about 3 inches the other day, and so the ground should be nice and saturated and wet, and make it a lot more easier for slippage when it comes to pulling this thing out of the ground. So one thing I do, I try to grab it down as far as I can, close to the ground, because if you start pulling it up too high, it's just going to snap a lot more easier. So you want to try to get it as close to the ground as possible. And what I'm going to do is basically stir it around. And when I'm doing my stance with this, I'm pretty much letting my legs do the work. So I'm trying not to exert myself too much and let my body kind of just move with the stake. And as you can see here, you're starting to see a lot more space. There you go. And actually that one was planted a lot more deep than I thought. That's probably almost, it's probably a good 18 inches, maybe 20 inches deep. So yeah, too deep. All right, so now it's time to get to the other stakes. So now that we got the stakes out of the ground, next part is to get this plastic up. And I've already started on one side, pulled the weeds back on the very end so I can get a hold of it. So all I'm going to do at this point, and also again, if I didn't already mention this, that if you can do this after it rains, it will make it a whole lot easier. So we got some rain the other day, and hopefully it'll make it easier, but we'll see about that. So I'm just going to keep pulling it until I get stuck someplace, but usually one side will be deeper than the other in terms of the soil being compacted, and that will be the side I will try to pull on to kind of like open up the lip, so to speak, which will make it a lot easier. So we'll see how we do. Got about halfway down, and then I got stuck, and then it also ripped a little bit. So I'm gonna give you guys a close-up on how to deal with this kind of situation, because you don't want to keep pulling it and ripping the plastic, because that'll make it that much harder to get that remaining plastic out of the ground. So this is what I mean. It started ripping here. There's plastic still under the ground. So I'm just gonna pull this back, all right? Exposing the plastic again. And over there, I had a little bit of weed, and I'll just kind of snap that back so I can get going again. This is actually probably the easiest part of, you know, just getting everything packed up, and all this stuff will go in the recycling bin as far as the plastics go. The string in the recycling bin. The tomato structure, the tomatoes themselves, the dead vines, will all go in a big, huge compost pile for decomposition. So one thing I will warn to you though, when you're pulling out the plastic, I think yesterday alone I saw 2 snakes. One was a big black snake. The other one was, it kind of looked like a copperhead, I think that's what it's called. But I just try to be careful with what I'm doing, and try not to get bit, because that's no fun. All right, so let's pull this drip tape out. All right, guys, so that's it. Now the tomatoes season is over, and although we do have a couple of tomatoes, you know, here and there, just as a late harvest, but you know, for the most part, you know, coming to the end of this September into October, you know, it's pretty much a done deal. So that's it, guys, and hopefully soon I'll be showing you guys some greens. And I'm sweating like crazy, but if you ain't sweating on a farm, then you ain't working. All right, so I'll see y'all next time. Take it easy.